Thanks for coming, everyone, this morning. And, I thought, I'm Justin. We've got our guest, Aaron Lunsford, here as well. And we got Robin, Sharon, Susan, Marilyn, Paul, Finette, Joe, and Alina as well. And I thought this would be interesting today. As we know, I'm not the most religious person in the world, but we do have some important, Jewish holidays coming up, and they have to do with judgment, right? Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Days of Awe, in which kind of, I guess kind of God like examines our good deeds, our bad deeds, kind of judges us for the coming year to see if we're, what our fate's going to be in the coming year, to see if we're going to be, inscribed in the book of life. And so, well, that's the religious part of it. But I thought it was a neat kind of opportunity to kind of, if we're ever asking for forgiveness, if we ever, committed an alleged sin or crime, well, we could end up in the Texas court system. And so, hope not, but it could be that, the judging for that would be, outside of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, it would be in the court system, in the different courts with the judges, with the jurors. So I thought it was a new opportunity to kind of learn about that and learn how judgment and the court system works. And so we're lucky to have Aaron Lunsford here today. Aaron's a member of the Houston Bar Association. That's how I kind of connected to her. There's a number of different organizations in Houston that offer speaker bureaus, and they offer a number of topics. So I reached out to them and they connected with Aaron. We're glad to have her here today. And so she's a member of the Houston Bar Association. She's also counsel at the law firm of Norton, Rose, and Fulbright. She's a 33-year trial lawyer specializing in the defense of healthcare clients in premises and medical malpractice cases. In July 2015, she was appointed to fulfill the remaining term as judge of the 61st District Court in Harris County. And in her 18 months as judge, she presided over 30 jury trials and was the number 2 judge in the number of jury trials in 2016. So with that, here is Aaron.
Thanks, Justin. Good morning, everybody. I have been a member of the Houston Bar Association since I was a baby lawyer back in 1988. And I've always practiced in Houston, except for that 2-year period that my husband made us move to Midland and, the oil business stuff. So, and so I've tried a lot of cases as a trial lawyer and as a judge. Now, I will tell you, all of my case experience has been mostly in civil court, but I'm going to give you sort of an overview of all the courts in Texas so you can kind of see what courts handle what. Because what I've discovered in doing some of these speeches is that it's really hard to keep all these courts straight and what they do. And then, you don't really understand why you have all those blanks, for judges on your ballot when you go, vote. And so this hopefully will help you understand what each judge does and that sort of thing. So I can never keep straight how many courts we have in Texas, but just if you would put up the court structure thing. The Supreme Court website has a whole ton of information. Oh, this is a little, let me see. Has a whole ton of information on, and I'm going to look at mine specifically because it's a little clearer, but if you can see that, and Justin can provide copies of this if you need it. So the Supreme Court website has a whole bunch of information that you can just look up if you're interested, and it talks about statistics of courts and how many cases they have and all that sorts of things, the names of all the judges and all that. So the courts are divided in Texas as to both the Supreme Court, which is the civil side, and the Court of Criminal Appeals. But if you go down, really the lowest courts, and I kind of start at the bottom. I don't know if you have to, yeah, that's good. All right, so it's kind of fuzzy, but so the lowest courts are justice courts, which are what we would call JP courts, right? They're like you see on TV, Judge Judy, but they're really not like Judge Judy. That's like for entertainment, right? So justice courts are basically, they can take care of civil actions of not more than $20,000. Used to be 10, but in Harris County, it's one of the bigger counties, and so we can do up to 20. And that's like small claims cases. So actually, you don't need a lawyer, and you can go file a lawsuit for a very small, I think it's $100 or something filing fee, and you can sue. I'll give you examples of things that I've handled actually in justice court. I represented Centerpoint for a long time, and people would sue Centerpoint when like their TV got fried from a, power surge, which actually they're not responsible for, but they still would sue them. And then, little things like if you had, as a maintenance worker at your house that damaged something and they didn't want to pay for it, you could sue them that way. That's the kind of thing that you can do in justice court. And then it also has some criminal misdemeanors that are only punishable by fine, like dog bites or those sorts of little things. So they just not any jail time, but just fines. I think violations of some, statutes like related to not getting a permit for your house, if they gave you a ticket for that, they're mostly just tickets. And then magistrate functions, which is just that's sort of a general thing. It's not anything that really has any applicability, except that a magistrate just basically agrees whether charges should be filed. It's almost like a grand jury kind of thing. And so justice courts are in the county. I think the one that's closest to me is that there's one over on Hillcroft, right at Gulfton. There's a big one. You might get a jury summons for justice court. I've had that happen before. And it is kind of a craziness. They make you stand there, they'll make you sit there for a while and then come in and they might question you. There are sometimes landlord tenant issues that come up in there, but I've never served on a jury in justice court, but I actually have tried cases in justice court, and they're usually very short, usually half a day, and then then they'll go on to some other case. They do multiple cases in a day. Now, municipal courts are run by the cities. So like the city of Bel Air has their own municipal court. The city of Houston has a huge municipal court. And those are criminal misdemeanors, punishable by fine only. Again, those would be dog bites. They could be traffic tickets, speeding, any sort of municipal ordinance violations that are in the cities. And then they have limited civil jurisdiction, but I've never really seen any civil cases in municipal court. It would be mostly where civil cases where somebody's suing somebody else. This would be the city suing you for a traffic ticket or something like that. Now you can also get jury duty in your municipal courts. And I've had to go down and sit in a room in the city of Houston. And then when I used to live in Bel Air, I went over there and sat there for a while. I don't think I ever served on a jury, but you can get called for those. And then we have county level courts. We go up. So there's 527 courts, 527 judges in county level courts. And there are two types. There's these constitutional county courts, which it says one in each county. We don't really have constitutional county courts in Harris County. We have statutory county courts, which are specific. We have 4 probate courts, which are county courts, but they only deal with probate. So anything to do with wills or guardianship or anything of that sort. That's the statutory probate court. Sorry, statutory county courts, we have criminal and civil. So in Harris County, we have 16 criminal county courts, and they do all misdemeanors. So DWIs, any sort of thing that would be a misdemeanor, which are like punishable by state jail time less than a year. And then we have 4 civil county courts, which they can have jurisdiction over civil matters up to $250,000. And then they also have mainly the majority of the jurisdiction over land cases where somebody's trying to condemn, condemnation cases. You're trying to condemn land to take it for the public use. And so those are the county courts, except for the really big cases can go to district court now. So, oh, and the constitutional county courts in some states in some counties, they do with juvenile matters, but in Harris County, those are actually district courts. Okay. District courts are the main courts that you would hear about, and that's where I was a judge in one of the district courts in Harris County. In Harris County alone, we have 60 district courts. 24 of those are civil district courts, 11 are family district courts, and 4 are juvenile district courts, and the rest are criminal district courts. And so they have unlimited jurisdiction in all civil actions. It says over $200, but everybody always sues for over $200. And then in felony criminal matters. So anything that's not a misdemeanor, it's punishable by more than a year in state jail and, up to death penalty cases. And then I talked about the juvenile courts. And so there's 482 in the state. And there's some districts that contain like counties that they go over county lines. And we always called those like, they're not roving, but they're like traveling judges because they have to go to more than one county. But those are in the little areas where there's less population. So if you went to district court and you weren't happy with what your result was, then you could appeal it to the Court of Appeals. And we have 14 courts of appeals and 80 justices. So each Court of Appeals has multiple justices, but they hear cases in 3-judge panels. And then you can ask to have the whole court hear something, which does not happen very often. So in Houston, in Harris County, we actually have 2 courts of appeals, which is a little bizarre. We have the 1st and the 14th. And the 1st was the first Court of Appeals, but it used to be in Galveston when Galveston was sort of the seat. But then after the 1900 hurricane, they moved it to Houston. So that's why we have 2 courts of appeals. And they hear any sort of appeals from any district court or county court. And we can get into a little bit more about what they do. And then we have 2 different highest courts, which is interesting. We have a Supreme Court, which has 9 justices, but currently has 1 vacancy because Justice Guzman resigned to run for Attorney General. So so we're waiting on the governor to appoint 1 more justice because you have to have an uneven number in case there's a tie, right? Otherwise, the underlying decision is upheld. And then we have the Court of Criminal Appeals, which hears automatic appeals of death penalty cases and all criminal cases that are on appeal from the courts of appeals. See over here, death penalty. So that's sort of the structure of the courts. So these are all the district courts in all the counties, and they actually have the numbers. So this is sort of an unknown fact, which is a little bizarre. When I was running for judge, people would say, oh, am I in your district? Because it's a district court, right? Well, it isn't really a district. It's not an area. It's a county issue. So like over here, and you can't really see it, it'll say what county it is, and it'll list like this is Harris County, and it lists all of the numbers of all of the courts in Harris County. So for example, I was the judge. Yeah, here's all the list. I was the judge of the 61st District Court. Well, that number only means the order that the court was added in the state of Texas, which is bizarre. But when the state adds new courts, like they just recently added a criminal district court that starts September 1st. And that in Harris County, and I don't remember what number it is, but I know the last court they added in Harris County was like the 507. So I was the 61st, which was actually the 4th. Wait, the 1, 2. It was the 11th. It was the 3rd court added in Harris County. So Harris County had the 1st court because it was the original seat. and that was the 11th district court was the earliest one, because remember, the courts of appeals are 1 through 14. So they started at 1 through 10, and then they made 11 as the first district court, but then they needed more appellate courts, so they had to add some more. So they had to take those numbers away from district courts. It's kind of bizarre. So if somebody says what district, it really doesn't mean anything. It's just what county. So I was a county-wide district court judge, and my number was 61. Well, there are 24 total civil district courts in Harris County, and they all do the same thing. It's just random assignment of cases as they are filed. And so I was 61st, but the 60th district court is in Beaumont in Jefferson County. So you can't tell based on the number where they are. You just have to ask what county they're in. So this is all the district courts. All right, you can take that one down. And I think there's one that was the appellate courts. Did I send you that one? The district. Yeah. Okay. So this is the appellate court districts. So like, for example, I said that this was the 1st and the 14th are over here by Harris County. And then the 9th is Beaumont, and it actually goes over to Montgomery County, which makes almost no sense, but it does. And like this one picks up some counties over here, the 10th, and the 5th is, I think, Tyler, which includes Smith County. So it's a lot smaller. See, some of these, like the 5th Court of Appeals would only have, I don't even know if it has 3 or 5 judges, but the 9th only has 3 judges. So it depends on the population. Each of the 1st and the 14th each have 9 justices. So I would imagine out here where there's not as much population, it's less. So we can take that down if you want, but that's where all the appellate court judges are. So that's sort of the structure of courts in Texas. We didn't have, they added the Court of Criminal Appeals years. I mean, it was, I can't remember the year, but it was after the Supreme Court was hearing both, and then they added the Court of Criminal Appeals. But we vote for, there's 9 people on that final court, and they sit in Austin, although these days of Zoom, everything is, I don't even know if they've had oral arguments anymore that are in person. I know they were going to go back to that. So I see there's some like chats here. Oh, okay, good. Yeah, Chimney Rock and Gulfton. Yeah, it's Gulfton and Forness or whatever. You're right. You guys are right. So are the judges elected? Somebody said in all these courts. Yes, not in municipal court, because like the municipality, like they appoint those. So the mayor appoints the municipal court judges, and they serve at his bequest. And then the same thing for Bel Air. I think that I'm just aware of that one, that the mayor or the city council appoints those judges. They've been the same for a long time. But everything from justice court to the Supreme Courts are elected. And unfortunately, we elect judges on partisan basis, which is kind of stupid in my mind, because that doesn't tell you whether they're qualified or not. And I will tell you that I was appointed to fill a term, and then in 2016 I lost by about 30,000 votes, and the woman that took my place had never tried a jury trial in her life. And so you don't know that stuff unless you know all the people. I mean, there's so many judges on your ballot. And if I could tell you one thing, it would be you should never vote for judges based on party affiliation, because it doesn't matter. It matters what experience they have, because that's what's important to lawyers. So, and I'm glad other people feel the same, because that's what they should. It's a crazy way, and they had a big commission to study that, and all the politicians want to keep it the same way. All the judges don't agree, and all the lawyers don't agree. It's amazing, because lawyers just want experienced judges that have tried cases, because what happens is A lot of these judges, especially in COVID, they haven't tried a single case. And the backlog is huge. I mean, it's just humongous. I don't even know how they're going to get through all this stuff. And so it's very frustrating. I mean, that was the fun part of my job, was trying cases and seeing juries. But other than that, you want to make sure everybody's happy about. Nobody likes going to jury duty, except after you've done it, almost everybody likes it, because you get to participate in the system, which is important. Anybody have any other questions?
Do you plan to run for judge again?
Oh yeah, I'm running this next time. So
Okay.
I don't know what'll happen. People tell me to switch parties, and I can't really do that. I don't think that's right. But I don't like the way we do it. So yeah, I mean, I will run again, just because I think it's important that we have qualified judges. But I'm not giving up my day job, put it that way, which is practicing law and doing mediations and arbitration. So that's I mean, I really believe everybody should have a good experience down at the courthouse if they have to be there. And frankly, the most contact that you might have personally with a politician, or which I don't think they should be politicians, but the most contact you would have with anybody who's elected is probably a judge. So you don't think about it, but if you want to sue somebody, if you're in a car accident and you get hurt and you need to be compensated, and the other person's insurance company won't pay, or they won't pay, and you go to court, you know, you want a judge that's going to follow the rules and get you to trial and get your, you know, get you compensated the best you can. The problem that we have is a bunch of these judges ran because they thought it was an easy job, that nobody kept checks and balances on them. And there aren't a lot of checks and balances aside from somebody making a judicial conduct complaint. And so there was a recent judge, county court judge, that just resigned in lieu of discipline. And he resigned because he was awful. It was just awful. And I can tell you that because I served as an attorney's fees expert in his case, in his court. And the rulings he made, I mean, were just against the law. And all you want is a judge to follow the law. And it was just, and the things that were complained about with him were bad, really bad. And the case that I was actually as an expert, the rulings he made it so that the jury had to find for the other party on attorney's fees. Although I think they listened to me because they awarded a lot less than what they asked for. But a court of appeals reversed the entire thing and sent it back. And think about what a waste of money and time that was for these parties. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem, is if you don't follow the law exactly, then you have to go back and redo it. Or the judge that took over for me in the 61st, she was just sanctioned because she had gone to lunch with the defense lawyer the day before she awarded his firm $2 million in attorney's fees in a case.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, it was in the paper. It was all in the paper. So the thing about it is, part of the deal with judges is you're supposed to avoid all appearance of impropriety. And it doesn't matter that they didn't talk about the case. It's the appearance of impropriety. It's like if I went to lunch with a lawyer, you know, same thing, and then, you know, ruled in his favor the next day. Can't do that.
I have a question. What
Sure.
would be a better way to appoint, well, not necessarily appoint, but put judges on a bench besides electing them? Because I feel the same as you do. Electing is not a good idea. We don't know who these people are.
Well, so Colorado does it really well. They have a system where they have a bipartisan judicial selection committee that picks, I think, picks a certain number of like 3 people. They interview them and all the qualifications, and then the governor appoints one of them. Now, you're never going to get politics all out of it, for sure. But in that system, the people that are getting appointed are more likely to not be involved in the political system at all, and so they'd be working on having their being qualified and that sort of thing. And then they have retention elections, and so they get a booklet, every voter does, where they get to see all the statistics of all the judges, how many cases they tried, reviews of judges, like if they're jerks or not, all kinds of stuff. And so they stand for retention elections, and then they're either retained or not retained. And if they're not retained, then it goes back to that appointment system that's bipartisan. And it's really a better way of doing things, I think. But the politicians don't want to take either side, both sides don't want to take the election out of it, because
That's decided by the state.
oh yeah, that would be a constitutional amendment. And let me give you an example. So right now, to be a district court judge, you just have to have 4 years practicing law, which is absurd. Okay,
Right,
4
too
years
late.
is not enough time, right?
I agree.
Well, there's a constitutional amendment that will be on your ballot in November that increases the number of years to 8. Well, I still don't think that's enough, but it's better than 4. So I would encourage you to vote yes on that constitutional amendment.
Thank
Just
you,
because
right.
the more experience, the better. Now, I really thought they should increase it so that you had to show that you actually tried cases as a lawyer. But for example, I'm board certified in personal injury law. So I had to have tried 10 cases and taken a big test and passed it, in addition to the bar exam when I became a lawyer. So I think that's important. But a lot of the little counties think that that's too much, that's too onerous to make them do it. So
Typical Texas,
yeah, it's so varied depending on the county.
men in Texas.
So anyway, that's that is, I think there should be better ways, but they'll never change it in my lifetime. So has anybody ever filed a justice court action that you know how to do it? Or it's kind of definitely a free-for-all like Judge Judy, but it's interesting. And frankly, that's what I hear. That's how they get their cases, that Judge Judy cases, is that they look at those California filings and they offer them a chance to be on TV if it's like a juicy case, and then they'll pay the TV show pays for whoever wins, pays their judgment. So that's their incentive for going and making a fool out of themselves on TV. So no bark. UPS man here. Bad. My dogs have to guard my house from the UPS man.
Dogs are waking up. You can see.
Yeah, well, when they see the UPS man, they definitely wake up. So has anybody been on a jury that you or you have questions about juries?
Oh, I have a question. I haven't been on a jury. I'm past 70. Well,
You don't have to be on a jury.
I know. I'd like to though, and I don't get notices anymore. I know, because I think one year I was scheduled to go in like January the 2nd. It was too cold and too early in the morning, so I used my age to get out of it. I'd like to get on it again. I wouldn't mind be part of a jury pool or whatever. How do I do that?
I always thought that you still got jury summons, but it's so weird. Just to let you know how they do those. So there's a wheel, which sounds really weird, but that's the way it used to be. So they still call it that. It's all computer generated, but there's a wheel that's based on driver's license. That's how they get the names. And they generate this wheel it was every 3 years, but I bet it's more often now because they need more jurors right now, because now they send you a letter saying you're subject to jury duty, can you do it? Are you qualified? And then you send it back. Because right now in COVID, they're calling jurors at NRG, and you sit in very socially distanced in areas with masks and everything. And then the lawyers ask you questions. The problem that I hear is that they can't even see the jurors. They're so far away from them. And a lot of times you're looking at their faces to see what their reactions to questions are, to figure out, that's the voir dire process, which voir dire just means to speak the truth. And it's just the way lawyers pick juries. So I don't know that I know you can't ask to be on a jury, but I don't know how you would find out if you ever could be on the list.
It's still in the poll. Yeah, maybe I am, and I just haven't gotten any.
And that's very possible. I haven't gotten called for jury duty in years.
Mhm.
And some people get called for federal jury duty. And I've never been called for federal jury duty.
Because I'm retired, but still in good physical condition. I don't mind getting in the car and going downtown.
And, I would tell everybody that being on a jury is a really interesting,
Experience.
it's an interesting experience, and it's a very heartening experience. So my big story about that really made a difference is when I was on the bench, all the it was that whole Ferguson thing was going on. So there were a lot of those riots and stuff up in St. Louis. And so it was very, contentious, white, racially at that time. And so I had a very diverse jury, and I was the judge, and it was a pretty contested personal injury case, and it was incredibly diverse. And so I was meet with the jurors afterwards and talk to them. And I talked to them afterwards, and the neatest comment was an African-American lady looked at me and she said, this whole process, it renewed my faith in people, because everybody listened to what I had to say and nobody poo-pooed, and everybody cooperated, and we reached a consensus on what the answer should be. And it really made me feel like, people listen to everybody. And I just got chills thinking that was really great that you would say that the process allowed you to, have faith in mankind and their ability to communicate regardless of what background. So that was a good experience from my perspective. I can tell you there weren't always 24 civil courts in Harris County or 21 criminal courts. They add courts as they are necessary from population standpoints. So like I said, there's a new criminal court that's going in that it starts September 1st, but I don't know that I haven't seen that the governor's appointed anybody for that. Because what happens is the governor appoints for vacancies, and then you stand for election on the next time judges are elected. And judges are district court judges. Well, all judges are elected in the governor year or the presidential year. So they're in the even numbered years, off years. So any other questions?
Is there like you mentioned, all the district courts in Harris County, for example, and you were the 61st. Is there a lot of camaraderie isn't the right word, but
yeah, it's a good word.
Tips. Do you have a relationship with the judge of the 60th court in Harris County, or even like outside other counties? Because you're all judges, but you have your own little thing.
Well, you have your own thing, but judges in general, and in this county, I had this experience too. That they cooperate with each other. So like if you have a really unusual legal argument, or for that matter, a litigant or a lawyer that's just bugging the crap out of you, you don't understand why you're having a problem with that lawyer, there's this email, this thing, we email each other and go, hey, does anybody have any ideas about how to deal with this? Or does anybody have any, it's very camaraderie in that sense. Everybody's always willing to help each other out. And I'm sure it's the same way now as it was when I was a judge, because they do really help each other out. And then judges have, they have conferences where, just like lawyers do, where they talk about things. And when you become a judge, they send you to baby judge school, which is what everybody refers to it as, baby judge school. And it's basically a 3-day period where you learn how not to get into trouble. You don't learn how to practice law because you'd have to learn. I mean, you don't learn about the law, you learn what you shouldn't do, like go to lunch with a lawyer before you award him fees, because that's a bad thing. And there's also an administrative judge in Harris County, or in our region, the 11th region. And she's a real good friend of mine. She was an ex-criminal court judge, and she basically deals with any of the issues like when a party makes a motion to recuse a judge, and that means to take them off a case because they think they're biased or they might have a relationship with one of the parties. Usually those motions are heard by the administrative judge or someone she assigns. And so she'll rule whether they should be recused and the case should go to a different judge. So.
What you mentioned just the administrative judge, like she and he, what is the breakdown of like male, female judges? Do you know, or in Harris County or just general?
In Harris County, I mean, in general, across the state, there are many. I mean, I think it's pretty evenly spaced. I don't have those demographics. They may be on the Supreme Court website, but in Harris County, there's many more female judges than there are male. And that's because girls get more votes than boys do, by the way. So like my ballot name is always Erin Elizabeth, because, you know, Erin can be a boy's name too, right? But I want people to know I'm a girl because I get more votes than boys do. And it's true. It's like a percentage bump. You know, it's good for like a 1 or 2 percentage bump. And when we are talking about only losing by 30,000 votes, that's important, because I think there were 1.2 million votes in the judicial races. So, this is something that's important. So we used to elect our judges, and it used to be straight ticket voting was available, and we got rid of that. And I'll be honest, I was the only judge that went to testify to get rid of it, because my thought in that is, again, why I don't like electing judges. You shouldn't elect judges just based on what party you should have to go down and actually vote for those judges. And that was what I think is important, because it's fine if you don't like me and you don't want to vote for me. But if you don't like me just because there's a crazy person on the presidential ticket, then I don't think that's fair. I think you should have to vote against or for the person. So but unfortunately, the elimination of straight ticket voting, it did not make a huge difference. And nobody really understands why that happened. Because in 20, it was different. So who knows? We'll see as time goes on whether it makes a difference, because we have such a long ballot. Lots of people don't vote all the way down, but we'll see. Any other questions? I'm trying to think of what else I can talk about, Justin.
And so you said there's the term. So do you know who you're running? So you're running in 2022. Do you know who's running against you yet, or has that?
Well, there's a current judge that's sitting, and he's a really nice guy. I like him a lot, but he had a primary opponent at the time. That was somebody that was a woman that he really thought he was going to lose the primary. Now, she may have switched races, I don't know. And we don't file until November. So we don't really know. Nobody really knows who you're running against, because I'm really just say I'm running for that bench because I think I was a good judge and I'll make a good judge again. And I think I'm fair to both sides. So I don't know if I'd be running against him, because it depends on whether there's a primary opponent. In general, the men usually get primary opponents because, again, women win over men. So, and it's sad because it's not because of their unqualifications. It's just that there's a bunch of people who think it's an easy job, which it is not an easy job. If you do the job, it's a lot of work, but it's fun. I think it's fun. It's sort of like I'm a law nerd and it's fun. Well, I mean, I like
Cool.
to engage in conversations about the law, just to, well, what about this and what about that? But in order to do that, you would have to read people's motions ahead of time and then have a conversation with them. And that's not happening as much anymore. It happens in certain courts, but not in others. So, and there's a lot of the Democratic judges that are my friends. So it's not like we're not friends because we're in different parties. It's just, unfortunately, it's just the way the system works. So.
Got it. All right. Well, any other questions out there for Aaron? All right. Well, thanks. And thanks again. Thanks for coming, Aaron. Thanks for talking to us about the Texas.
Yeah. And if anybody has any questions, and you can email them to me and I'll answer them for sure. So thanks for inviting me. I hope you guys learned something, and y'all have a great day.